Infinity Pool is Mia Goth's second release over here in as many weeks. You may remember me raving about Pearl, for example, just last week. This time it focuses on primarily Alexander Skarsgård's lapped rider, James, who, while on a luxury holiday in the fictional island of Latolka with his wife, encounters a fan in Mia Goth's Gabby. They begin to socialize with Gabby and her husband, and the holiday swiftly goes sideways, then a very weird pathway. I can't really say much more because I am going to start giving away the meat and potatoes of the plot. But yeah, let's just say it gets weird. And did you ever have a weird night that you did a post-mortem on afterwards? Maybe you had too much to drink, maybe you took a little something, no judgment here, where afterwards you kind of woke up and were just thinking about it and you're like, I can't explain anything that happened then, but I guess I just needed it. And that's kind of like the trip that James goes on throughout this movie after a traumatic experience changes his mindset. And unfortunately, the movie itself, to watch it, made about as much sense as following someone during one of these nights while sober. It's like, this is just shite. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? I don't understand it. And you probably don't either. You're just fucked up. Don't worry though. The MGCU is intact. Intact. Don't get me wrong. Mia Goth is an absolute phenom, and she gives her all in this performance and is the exact dose of sexy, charming, and sinister that the role demands. She can turn on that light at any one stage. But again, even though the kind of compliments I'm giving her are very similar to what I gave her last week, it's a completely different style of character that just shows she has that versatility while also being able to just switch up her emotions on demand. Meanwhile, Skarsgård goes against type here, and it also works. We're used to seeing him play kind of smug, cocky, always in control, good-looking guys who are confident and have the world in the palm of their hands. So it's very disarming to see him play insecure, afraid, and easily manipulated as he does with James in this movie. But it's a string he can successfully add to his bow after this. The lead roles are the highlight of this movie, and sadly for me, the only thing holding it together, really. Although the movie is, it's not something where everyone's coming out and saying that it's awful. It's really Marmite. People are either loving it or hating it. So again, you might love it, even though I didn't. Last week when discussing Pearl, I spoke of how Mia Goth's gradual shift change from naive and stargazing to really sinister felt totally earned because it was character-led, and it benefited kind of careful scripting and direction that lets us actually spend time with the character, lets us kind of into their mindset so that we can kind of, at least while we can't predict what they're going to do, and while it is still wild what they do, and it still is a massive left turn, it does feel earned. That stands in huge contrast to a lot of modern horror movies. Last week I spoke about how a lot of modern horror movies have a really just normal build up. Everything's fine. Everything's normal. This is what normal people do. And then it just goes left and it goes into absolutely insane and goes off a cliff on the basis of kind of one or two barely distinguishable nuggets or Easter eggs that the optimistic writers or directors would call it, dropped early into the movie. And then at the end of it, you walk away and you're like, the start and the end felt like two completely different movies, to be honest. Infinity Pool is extremely guilty of the latter. I found it not dissimilar to Triangle of Sadness. It's a movie that attempts to be a clever satire, covering so many things that in the end it kind of becomes about nothing and swallows itself whole. For example, is it a movie satirizing the Welsh sense of privilege while traveling to poorer nations by being able to buy their way out of any trouble? Is it a case studies of who we are underneath the surface when we rid ourselves of the impression that we want the world to take from us? The movie can claim to be both in theory because it does touch on both topics, but it can't really claim to really have gone anywhere with either. Instead, a bunch of weird things happen because they wanted to make a movie about a bunch of weird things happening and hope a section of the audience would just grab hold of it and give it a profundity and meaning that it didn't quite deserve, to be honest. It's quite graphic at times too, both in terms of violence and sexuality. And look, I'm a huge horror fan, so I'm no prude when it comes to either gore or nudity, but there's a line where it can just feel like it's overcompensating, and Infinity Pool dances on and then pisses on that line. In the end, it goes to such a ridiculous space that the characters don't even seem like the people that we met at the beginning of the movie, nor does it seem like the doubles they're trying to portray either. Their decisions aren't following any kind of true lines or logic, so it's impossible to care about anything that's happening, and it's all a little boring and try-hard as a result. This was written and directed by Brandon Cronenberg, who's the son of legendary director David. Brandon has a little way to go before living up to his father's legendary legacy after this, because this effort doesn't lack for ambition, but it's missing the substance to tie it all together in the end. Having said that, the Mia Goth train will keep on rolling. I think she's actually going to be a global phenomenon in the making, but this was just one weird pit stop along the way, and we're all just probably better off forgetting about it. Go watch Pearl instead.